Okay, so good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us today on Elders Connect with Raghu. So today is the second episode of our panel discussion, which we initiated early in April this year. A quick introduction of the panelists. So we have with us Dr. Prem Narasimhan, who's a consultant in geriatric medicine at Jaslok Hospital, Mumbai. Then we have Sunayan Mitra, who is the Director for Coffee and Beverages at Nestle for the South Asia region. Then we also have Param Kaur. She's Director for People Shared Services, Publicis Sapient. Deepika Choudhary, who is a Master Coach, Geriatric Counselor, and an LLB practitioner. We have Shilpi Singh, who is again a Master Coach, and she is also the co-founder of Studio 4 and Unhotel, and Studio 4 is also our digital marketing partner. Then you all know Raghu, K.S. Raghunandan, who's the founder of EldersIndia and Elders Wealth. And I'm happy to be here as part of this team. My name is Rima Bose, and I am the Chief Customer Officer for EldersIndia. I want to hand over to Shilpi to set the context for the panel today, and then take it forward from there.
Sure. Thank you, Rima, and thank you, everybody, for joining in for this discussion. We met Raghu via Rima at Studio 4, and she said, I've joined this company and it is into elder care services. And we thought, okay, this would be another elder care services organization. But as entrepreneurs, we always are hungry for more business. So that's how we connected with Raghu. But have to tell you that completely bowled over with his vision and passion of establishing Elders India and Elders Wealth in the space of elder care, which goes beyond healthcare, actually. And that's what our first session was all about. It was with the corporates discussing what really elder care means in today's corporate scenario and what are corporate doing about it. We all are talking about childcare so that we have more women in the workforce. The statistics say that elder care is also becoming an increasingly important area with people moving to urban spaces and families left behind. And it's really during COVID, we all realized that it was so tough to be away from parents or elders and so difficult to take care when you're remote. And you're always constantly thinking that you have to do something, but perhaps you're not always present there. So I'll leave it for Raghu to explain a little more. Maybe he's already connected one-on-one with all of you, so we don't need so much of introduction to that. But the idea of this series of Elders Connect is about creating that voice, because it's a very nascent category. People still feel elder care is only about having senior care homes or maybe a little bit of healthcare support, like a nursing support and things like that. But it's such a nascent category that we need to have more voices, more faces talking about it, so that we create more awareness, and therefore at different levels, whether it's a societal level, whether it's a corporate level or an individual level, together we can create that ecosystem that is required to take care of the seniors in the country. So this is the second in the series, as Rima said, and we'll continue to have more such conversations. We're also having one-on-one conversations with a senior HR professional along with Rima. I would also request if you can connect us to your organizations, wherein we can have these one-on-one conversations with them as well, to create awareness, and then perhaps also to see if Elders India can collaborate with them in future to kind of expand the network of the services that they provide to more and more people. So thank you once again, and over to you, Raghu. And I might just switch off my camera in between. I'm sorry for that, but there's some emergency out here, but maybe I might have to. So in that case, just excuse me.
Thank you, Shilpi, and thanks Rima as well for the introductions. And thank you all the panelists for joining us today. As Shilpi mentioned, we started these discussions on elder care with a particular focus on bringing awareness and participation from corporates and working professionals with a view to cover various relevant topics over multiple sessions with appropriate experts. featuring in each succession. In this episode, we'll be taking the next step, but looking at the important aspect of elder care, which is the health care for elders, and going further from a corporate point of view. Is there a case for going beyond providing health insurance option for parents, which most of the corporates do? And if so, what it is? So to begin with, Dr. Prem, uh, from the point of understanding elder care itself, or from the point of healthcare, what is the meaning, relevance, and importance of geriatric care? Why is there a special focus? Maybe just to get us started, maybe you can give a little bit of introduction on that.
First of all, yeah, thanks for having me. It's nice to be among people who are sort of interested in giving their perspective on elder care. And I completely agree, even as a healthcare professional, that elder care is not only about health. And one of the most important things that is said, to be very frank, is that health is usually the way an older person lives. So it's a common sort of, you can say, a thing that joins on an older adult from being independent or being dependent. So that's why health is important in the paradigm, overall paradigm of aging gracefully, if that is the word which I have to sort of use. One of the very key important factors in healthcare as far as older adults are concerned is that no older person is the same. So it's a very heterogeneous population. And what works for one does not work for the other one. We very easily sort of are ready to agree to that in other age groups, but somehow we do not get into that fact as far as older adults are concerned. I'll give you a simple example. It is often said as a myth of aging that all older adults forget, which is not the case. I mean, if everybody would be forgetting, then everybody would get dementia ultimately. And yes, I agree the cases of dementia are increasing, but that doesn't mean that everybody has that. So it's a myth. So what is important is there are a lot of things that affect an older person's health. Now, one is the disease part. Yes, the number of diseases you have, yes, it affects your in general overall health. Then as one ages, one has to understand that even a beautiful car, if it is a 20 years old, there is obviously a bit of wear and tear. So with aging, obviously the various organs of the body, they tend to age. So what we are dealing here with is disease and an aging body, and not only disease, which is usually focused more on. Another very important thing as far as the older adults are concerned is the fact that there could be some amount of history in the family, some genetics, maybe there's diabetes, maybe there's cancer propensity. So if there is anything like that, so prevention is something which is sort of should be focused on a lot. We tend to neglect it again because, I mean, let me be very frank, and I'm sure everybody in the panel will agree. Nobody wanted to talk about adult vaccinations before COVID. Whereas we have, as geriatricians, been talking about older adults getting vaccinations for a long time, but no one was convinced. But as soon as the pandemic came in, people were asking whether we should take it or not. People took it. Now people are asking about the booster also. So I think as far as thought provocation is concerned, the pandemic has really to a great extent also helped. Now, what is important is behaviors matter as well. So that is another key. By behaviors, I mean the amount of food you take, the water intake, what kind of exercise an older adult does. Exercise is a very broad term. Every older adult might have a different sort of exercise. And of course, it depends upon your cardiovascular sort of way, or maybe your neurological problems, which of course is the disease part. Now, this is something from within, but we as human beings don't live within. We live with an interaction with the environment. So obviously there is an external environment that also is a key role maker as far as elder care is concerned. So what is this about? Very simple thing: transport. I'm an older person wants to come, but how confident are we for them to actually use public transport? We are getting there, but we are nowhere near where the West is, wherein we know that if somebody travels by bus or train, the older adult is going to be safe enough because everything is sort of modified according to their requirements. Then housing matters. By housing, I mean, if an older adult has bad knees and lives on the first floor without a lift, that is a matter of concern for me, because that older adult would not get out of the house in spite of just having bad knees. I completely fit, but not going to the park because there is no lift, not meeting friends because, so ultimately there might be isolation. Whereas the trigger point was that there is no lift. That's it. So something which could have helped them. So the point I'm trying to make is sometimes it's only about bridging the gap and trying to push them to do something. And we sort of tend to think, no, it's because age is there, you might not be able to do. So that's a bit of sort of the general tendency. Then another very, very important thing is the social facilities, I feel. See, as far as health is defined, it's defined as a state of physical, mental, and social well-being. So physically, if you're fit, it's good. Mentally or not, it's not good, because you'll end up obviously neglecting your physical part. But as they say, I mean, a human being is a social animal. So you need to have social facilities. So whether it's going to the clubs, whether it's going to the park, or even now in this paradigm when people are on Zoom and people are chatting, even older, I mean, what I have learned in the pandemic is there is nothing that an older adult cannot learn. And people who were not even
agree
interested, I'm
there.
not saying they were incapable, they were not interested in going into technology, no technology better than maybe even me, because they're studious about it. So that also matters. So once your entire paradigm is that, that's how I focus on an older person. So as they say, the medical symptoms cannot be the only one affecting the health. The overall social structure, the financials, the economics, even that helps. All the money in the world, but no one to take care for. So that also sort of matters. So I think in an overall bird's eye view, one should not just say that, okay, fine, an older adult's health is only dependent on the diseases there. I think that is very loosely put in.
Fantastic. I think you really brought the multi-dimensional nature of health, especially when it comes to older adults. And it's interesting that you brought this analogy of with 20-year-old car. Sometimes you go to the garage with one problem and come back with 20 diagnosed. So
Yes.
a lot of factors affect, and you talked about physical, mental, social, behavioral, and the safety aspects, transportation aspects, all of it, and the financial aspects. There was this article recently I talked about higher debt causing health issues for elders and so on. So clearly multidimensional. Deepika, would you like to add, especially from a mental health point of view, given that you have quite a bit of experience in geriatric counseling, and everyone else, and all of us have this experience of taking care of our own parents. So feel free to chip in after Deepika as well.
Yes, yeah, Raghu. Hi. Yeah, I would certainly like to add, I feel that boredom is one of the very, very major features which cause mental disorders in older people. Because, retirement, first and foremost, I think facing retirement, in lack of any physical ability to do certain things which they were able to do when they were younger, they suddenly find that the ability is fading. That also affects them. And I think loneliness. I've seen people who have grandchildren and who are in joint families. Elders from those families are far more active mentally, physically. They have less disorders, or even if they do have disorders, they're able to cope better. But people who are in nuclear families, and they suddenly find that their children have gone away, they've retired, they have a lot of time on their hands, and the inability to fill in, and they do not have hobbies per se to take care of those, and again financial aspects as well. All those add to that. I find that giving you an example, a very simple example, as I mentioned earlier, my father lived to be 94. He had stage 4 cancer. And he had it for 4 years. When he was detected, it was already stage 4. No medication was given to him. He didn't take any, he opted out of taking any kind of chemotherapy, radiation, anything. He decided that that was the way he wanted to be and didn't want to be taken to the hospital either. That was his wish. But he was very, very mentally alert. One, because he was, interested in sports, avid, always up to date with all the current information. And then he used to play bridge thrice a week, though he was on a wheelchair for 4 years, but mentally very alert.
So having some hobbies and
Yes.
engaging yourself.
Yes,
Okay.
that really, really helps. Now, on the flip side of it, I look at my mother, who, she was bedridden too, like he was for some time. She was a person who was working, who was teaching, but she couldn't cope with her illness, her physical illness, and that took a heavy toll on her. She went into depression. She closed all the doors. She stopped talking to people. I think that's what a lot of elders do as well. They stop talking because they feel that, there's some kind of a betrayal. If your children have gone overseas or if they're working in a different city, sometimes parents and elders feel that if, they talk about their troubles or if they talk about, their fears, it's in some way maligning their children.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you mentioned again, multiple aspects, and since you mentioned children, and the fact that these days, the nuclear family, children going away, and elders being left for themselves, and the boredom and loneliness also adds to the pleasure of from the elders. Since you mentioned children, just wanted to go back to the
Hello.
I think we have lost him.
Yeah, we've lost.
So just wanted to get a perspective from Prem, and then others can chip in from their experience as well. Just wanted to see, if I want to take care of my parents in their older age, what's a good point for me to, when should I be looking at intervening, and what could be the trigger points?
I think one of the most important things again is, I'm just emphasizing on the fact is it takes one, because every older adult is so different. So one has to know, of course, the health status. I mean, I would say that a health checkup every year, or otherwise specified by the particular person who is taking care, the doctor, healthcare professional should be sort of focused on, because some people who might have specific, you can say, diseases like heart diseases, kidney diseases, they might have to visit the doctor a bit more frequently. Now, what happens with people who actually age well? So for them, I feel people who don't have disease burden, I think I totally agree. I think loneliness and isolation is something which can really get in. Boredom is another one. That's why whoever is sort of still working should plan their retirement rather than just reach that point wherein I am okay, fine, 60, 65, whatever the age. I mean, that number has only been created for, I mean, that is not necessarily your output, anybody's output, to be very frank. If you're robust mentally and physically, you can work till whatever age anybody wants. So it's just been, you can say, a line which has been drawn artificially, to be very frank. But people tend to toe around that line. So it's like, if they are, for example, it's 59 years and 364 days, and then the 60th day, and suddenly people don't know what to do. They might have 9 to 5 jobs, then they sort of After that, everybody has a plan. Let me be very frank. I will travel around. I'll have so much of time. I will visit my kids. I will watch more TV. I used to love cricket. Now I'm going to continuously watch. But then it happens for a week, 2 weeks, and then they're like, oh my God, does it mean I'm actually useless? So I'm not doing anything.
Absolutely.
Rather than thinking about that, I would say that they should plan to what they want. I mean, the pandemic is not only been the bad part of it, it has a lot of been good parts in which people have been able to know they can acquire skills wherever they are, rather than just enrolling into a course that they actually have to go. I mean, I know of a fact, there is a 76-year-old who did a gerontology course because he wanted to make a difference. He said, I should understand aging. I should know the theory of it to actually help people in my senior citizen association. So there are a lot of ways to contribute. And there is it's a very sort of, I won't say it's a cliche, but it's something which is very common. Whenever an older adult gets up, if I have to say it in Hindi, it will more impact. Jeene ki ek wajah honi chahiye. When you get up in the morning, there has to be some kind of objective. And it doesn't mean that you need to make a sea change. No, a small, where in the pandemic, people help people in the sort of by cooking food and sending. I mean, that was as simple as that, but it made a huge difference. So the mental health is a problem for me, because वो बोलते हैं ना, जो दिखता है वही बिकता है. Why? Heart attack अगर होगा तो chest pain होगा, the person will be like, no, I have to rush to the emergency. No, but an older adult says, I am feeling a bit low. नहीं, पापा या मम्मी थोड़े टाइम में ठीक हो जाएगा, थोड़ा टीवी देख लो, थोड़ा न्यूज़पेपर देख लो, पढ़ लो. Keep yourself busy. That is what children might say. But if it continues, I would advise the older adults not to shy away from talking about their mental health, not necessarily to a doctor. Things have changed. People approach psychiatry in a different way. If you want, talk to your friend. If you want, talk to your spouse. If you think it's not even going to be helpful, then go to a professional also, because these are things which can be treated. By treated, I mean, it doesn't need you need medications. Even counseling would sort of help in. And sometimes it's not needed professional as well. It could be just a friend. It could be you writing it down on a diary and analyzing yourself. So those indicators I feel are very important. So those are easily missed by children because they just brand it to aging, and not because they believe in it. Because everybody says कि नहीं वो थोड़ा बहुत होता है. They discuss with their friends, हाँ मेरे mom dad का भी ऐसा कुछ हो रहा है. So maybe just keep them busy. Maybe they should be fine. And we care a lot, but sometimes our attitude also affects. I'll give you a very simple example, then you can move on. A homemaker who loves cooking food, who is physically fit, mentally fit, is 75 maybe. She's or he also. Why you should say only it's a she. Loves cooking. If you just say, nahi yaar, we have servants, you relax. No, why don't you want to? Why you just rest? Do your stuff. There is a cook. The cook will cook. But maybe you're actually unintentionally taking away a passion. And then the older adult doesn't know what to do. So that's why sometimes we can be really caring to an extent that we might be smothering them, but we are not realizing. So I think it should be a very open sort of an environment in which the older adult always tends to learn. Then there are glaring signs. If somebody is forgetting, somebody has actual issues in which you are noticing a change in a behavior, whether it's mental, physically they are getting disabled, then you need to obviously get in touch with healthcare professionals and try to get them through. But in general, I will say age group 50, 55 plus, you should be very, very sort of religious in trying to do health checkups. I'm not talking about symptoms here. Religious health checkups. Worst come worst, you'll be normal for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years till you're dead. But worst, best come forward, you might detect a disease which might actually be gone by the time you are much older. So I think that's the way we should sort of go. It has to be more pragmatic rather than being fixed in thinking, no, if I only have a symptom, then I'll go to the doctor. It's about being safe than sorry. And I think prevention is better than cure. Again, an absolute cliched line, but it is a truth.
But it always works.
It always works.
So being proactive, having annual checkups, and from a children's standpoint, make sure you keep observing the change, don't ignore and don't brush it aside. So maybe Param and Sunayan, you have any personal experiences that you may share in this regard to kind of add to this perspective?
I can go perhaps, and
Sure, sure.
Sunayan, please add in. So two things. One, from a very personal perspective, I've been a caregiver for my parents-in-law who
Mhm.
passed away a year apart last year. It's something which is very conscious. So like a joint family, they've been with me for the last 20 years or so. And the change in them during COVID, and they were happier because we were there around and things like that were very visible to us. And my father-in-law, who passed away a year later, was able to get over the pain of losing somebody with whom he was there for 65 years. Uh, because I think the moment lockdown happened, I mean, we were all home, and he participated in cooking and all of that. He had been a very active person all his life, right? So personally, a lot of experiences around caregiving, not just from a medical perspective, but from giving company, noticing the change, making adjustments, because we wanted them to have a full life. So every Saturday evening they'd go to the Gurdwara for Sangat, and it didn't feel like we would say that, okay, we want to party, you go yourself. I mean, why do you want to drag us along, like, every evening? But the whole idea of going as a family meant so much to them from their generation that we would physically and emotionally see the difference the days that we accompanied, whereas the days that they went by themselves, things like that. So personally, a lot around that. And then from a corporate perspective, I'm lucky that I co-lead the BRG and DEI efforts for my organization in India. So we have 6 BRGs, and incidentally, one of them is caregiving. So there are 3 streams that we work towards. One is elder care. The second is parents who are our employees, but who have children in this, with different kind of special needs. They could be on the spectrum. They could be a cerebral palsy. They could be hearing impaired, visually impaired. They could be, neurodivergent. They could be even left-handed, because we've done some research on that, and parents constantly face problems with children who are completely left-handed. And very simple things like even scissors don't work for them during art and crafts. So supporting that, and then the other side is the pet parenting. So we, over the last 2-3 years, where we got deeper and deeper into elder care research, we realized all of the things that Dr. Prem is saying, and also Deepika, what you shared about your personal story, that kind of really resonated with me, because just we believe that as an inclusive organization, the idea about supporting the caregivers is simply because we want them to bring their whole self to work. You don't cut yourself in half and say, oh, this is my professional self, and I won't talk to anybody at home while I'm doing that. It's unprofessional. While I'm at home, it's not like that, right? Like the last 2 years, our homes have become our offices, right?
Yes,
our
absolutely.
lives have got intermingled without people really being able to do anything about it. So our children and our pets and our homes have become part of our official existence. In the same way, we believe that if we had to give, the idea behind this BRG is to support our people so that they feel that they are happier, they're engaged, their overall wellness is being thought about, right?
Yeah.
So we celebrate Grandparents' Day and blogs and stories, and we have children and grandparents family days where they come in and experience the office. We do hot seating. So we recently did something in March as part of our celebration of the Diversity Month. We don't celebrate Women's Day, we celebrate it as the Diversity Month overall, So what we did was we allowed all grandchildren from their profession, if they had something which they were passionate about, to come and do a puzzle or a code, a part of a code. Somebody in naval, somebody in electronics, somebody who was a doctor and who still practices, somebody who was in IAS services, in government jobs, somebody in banking, right? It was over a period of 2 days, we did a hackathon for them, and it was such a joyous occasion where they felt like, Dr. Prem, like you said, and Deepika, like you said, they felt they were doing meaningful stuff.
Yeah.
They were actually contributing a new idea and solving it with their 30, 40, 50 years of experience and passion, right? So I think, and it resonated so much with our people. We had hearty participation. Now they're asking us to say that, oh, why did we do it once a year? Can we do it every quarter? And would you support it? Like, so there are things beyond just considering illnesses and insurances and things like that. While I also do want to mention something around that, we've realized when we've studied our insurance that the organization provides, because I think we are one of the top 10. We provide insurances for HIV, mental wellness treatments and things like that, which is pretty rare in the industry. But we realize that critical care of certain illnesses, which are long-term and they are not curable, for example, Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and things like that, the insurance companies overall make it so difficult to include it in your package that the insurance premium goes up by lakhs. And I'm not even thinking about it, you know, just so they know, because it's a long illness and there is treatment required over a longer period of term. So they make it almost like unattainable for anybody within the corporate. And we have been pushing our corporate to create a corpus to say it's not a volume game. We won't have 200, 400, 1,000 people signing up for this. But even if there are 2 people who believe that they are feeling supported for their elder care, would the corpus, like the additional fund that you create as a corporate, would the corpus support it in addition to what the insurance is doing, right? So some of those things over the period, like pushing policies a little bit, while on the ground we look at, you know, engagement, happiness, all of those things for our people. Also from the policy front, we've been pushing the boundaries a little bit to say, okay, would you be willing to make that difference for one individual whose life would be better because he'd become a better caregiver, you know? And it is, of course, known, I mean, implicitly and explicitly, the Fortune 500 companies have shown it, that happier employees, engaged employees creates value, creates pipeline, creates retention, and, you know, creates higher productivity. You have less absenteeism because the people feel that they are taken care of, right? Their whole self is being taken care of. So it does make sense from an ROI and an absolute bottom line perspective for an organization which is looking at an overall long-term benefit, including a people value proposition. You know, all of those things that we hear in the market, the best employers and things like that. I think ultimately the needle movement comes from a lot of things which happen under the radar, not just policies. And these are some things that we've been trying to do to shift that, you know, attitude, the mindset, leaders becoming more inclusive to decisions, like taking time off and giving people time off for care that they need, not just sticking to sick leave and your vacation leave and things like that. So hopefully we'll be at a better space. And the more and more corporates realize it, the more and more corporates become aware, they listen and they learn, and they're ready to take a step forward, the better we will be as a community and a society, I think.
I think it's very right. Absolutely. Agree there.
I think, Raghu, you should have Param as a brand ambassador for EldersIndia for sure. So we'll pass many more hurdles. But even with, I mean, Sunayan, because I know him personally as well, and I've seen him taking care of his parents from far and near. I would, you know, Sunayan, we would love to know how the journey was and your individual capacity. What was it when you were caregiving, and also as a part of the corporate, because Param is from HR, so you know we can understand the policy she's pushing out there. But as an employee of a multinational, what's the kind of support that, if you can talk about it, that you got from your organization? Even that would be helpful for us to understand some perspective.
Yeah, thanks, Shilpi, and thanks, Raghu. We had firstly, it's so important to have this conversation, and let me break it. It's personally been quite revealing for me, though all of you spoke things which are very sensical. So I'll look at it in 2 ways, and one is the emotional bit, which gets a lot of airspace, and rightfully so, because we are all human beings are emotional. And the one is a more practical part, and I'll come to the emotional bit first, and that links to what Shilpi was asking, that you go through your personal experiences of as a son to parents who grow old, and Uh, you know, as youngsters, when you are young and you grow up, your parents are always supermen and superwomen. You see them as able to do everything, never get
Yes.
tired. When you come in and are completely tired after maybe an outing also, they don't seem to be in the same space. So that's how you grow up. So from your point of view, there's a big change which needs to be done, which Dr. Prem
Yeah.
was talking of, which comes with realization with age and with also a willingness to see from their point of view. And maybe as you become parents, as you have old children getting older, you tend to appreciate that bit more. And now coming from the older point of view, the parents' point of view, I think there is a big change over there, which was verbalized here. One of them being that their parents, they don't want to be a burden. So
Yes.
the, a lot of the
Correct.
things which they don't say is because they don't want their children to be under stress
Yes.
and take a risk financially, be a little less better because they had to spend. So all these are very complex but real emotions which they will never tell you because they never have. When you were young and asked for a cricket bat, you never really figured out that how affordability was there
Yeah.
for your parent. They never made it. Why will they suddenly do that when they are not feeling well? And like Dr. Prem was saying, maybe some of it is also that I don't want to tell them. I don't know what will come out of it. So let me just keep it to myself. Maybe it'll go over. That understanding, I think, is putting in a completely different lens. And I'll give another example which was talked of. As children, we always feel that if we can get them closer to us, and if we are somewhere else, that is what they will really appreciate. But if we take them out of their roots and put them in where we are and ask them to lead life our way when we are in office from 9:30 to maybe 7:30, our children are in school, it's not the same. So you, from your point of view, is wanting to do good, but actually from their point of view, it is not at all what they want. They want you to come over, spend time with them at the place where you grew up, which is completely different than physically there. So there was a lot of part when I was much younger where I used to really put pressure on my parents to come and spend time, and I couldn't understand really. And I'm being very, very transparent. I couldn't understand why couldn't they stay and feel like when I was growing up, when I was staying with them, why can't it be the same? And it took a lot of experiences to figure out and looking at it from their point of view that it's not at all the same. That's the emotional part where being empathetic suddenly doesn't mean that you are not loving them, but looking at them from their point of view, I think needs to be spoken of more. And along with the help which elders need, I think youngsters need as much help to know this. And I wish I knew it
Absolutely.
15 years
Yeah.
back. Somebody had told me, hey, you are looking at it from your point of view, which is completely correct,
So
but
true.
not correct from the other point of view. So that's one on the emotional bit. Two, now coming to the more practical part is some things which we don't want to see is that we are a country which is on the brink of getting older.
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
we never want to
Absolutely.
speak of that. We are known as a young country. Today, we are still more than nearly 50% are less than 25 years of age, which is a great thing to talk of. But in 30 years, by 2050, what
Yeah.
we hear is the estimates are there will be 320 or 300 plus million people who are old. Just to put it in perspective,
Yes.
the population of US, full population, is 320 million. So we will
Okay.
have one US people, number of people here who are old.
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 Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
don't have a social security which is there in this country and will not be possible. We are a poor country. It is not the same as a rich country which has social security having old people. than in India, when we will have such a sizable population who are getting old. Now that is real, that is going to happen. And unless we do something significant, we will be entering into such a kind of disaster where, and I'll tell you the other practical bit, which doesn't sound necessarily correct always. One is that it should not be left to good intentions of children. I don't think that is where we should leave elders to be as a system when we are talking of 350 million. There are examples which are very good, which we heard today, we keep on hearing, which children do a lot for their parents. But do we do that for our children? Of course we do that for our children. All of us do it for our children. But still we have a school. We don't keep our children at home all the way saying we will do the best for them. We have a complete set of external systemized way of taking care and building them up where they need it. Why should it be different?
Absolutely.
And if we think it should be different, we are being emotional and not looking at the real practical issues. That their needs, like a child's needs, are different. That's why a school is meant to do all of that. Because even if we want, we can't give it to them. Very few people can do homeschooling and be successful about it. I would not be able to do it for sure. Similarly, we would need something for older people where it's not left to chance, where it is professionals, irrespective of what they feel about it. If they do their job well, older people will be taken care of. And the last thing I'll come to stop it is, end my long soliloquy is, we should brand it better. The moment we say it's an old age home, we have finished it.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Why should we call it geriatric care? Is so nice to see because people don't understand. But schools, we don't say anything which takes care of it. But the moment we say it's a mental illness home, we have lost it. Nobody wants to go to a psychiatrist. The moment we say that it's an old age home, that's not what it's meant to be. So that is where I think, coming back, closing the question which Shilpi asked, as corporates, I think as corporates, we are humans. We are people first. People make corporates. So if we understand this is the need we need to put forward, not because we love them less or love them more, but because this is the right way to do, like we have for children, vocational training for them. The entire jingbang is kept because we are not enough to be able to guide them. Same as with parents.
Absolutely. So I think you brought multiple points. I like the characterization that you made, that look, as children, we see our parents as Superman or Superwoman. They take care of all our needs, and we don't know when the transition the other way happens. And even when that happens, the perspectives from which the children approach and the parents themselves see as their needs could be vastly different. And as you mentioned, I wish I knew 15 years earlier, then you would have done something different. So just looking at that aspect a little more, is there a need, Deepika, Prem, that, is there a way that we can bring up this awareness amongst the youngsters? And do you see a need for corporates to kind of step in and help? There are a lot of activities and initiatives that Param mentioned that corporates can take and have taken. But on this aspect of enabling the children to appreciate this process of aging and the elder care aspects better, is there anything that we could do from a training standpoint or awareness standpoint? And if so, what that could be?
I think one of the things that one could do is, hold workshops for people with elderly parents, wherein we talk openly, where, again, like we're doing now on this forum, to do that more often, because people don't want to talk about elders and, the problems or the challenges being faced by them. People don't know. They just feel that my parents have suddenly, grown old. and they're always talking about their aches and pains, and we're always making visits to the doctor. Nobody really wants to sit down and think as to what to do next, because this is something that's not going to go away. They're only going to get older. They're only going to get older. And looking at the scenario, children have less time available. Everybody's involved with their own work, with their own children who are growing up, other challenges. So I think it's very important that, when you do have, workshops or involve employees and get them to understand that how important it is, like Param also mentioned, get your parents involved in activities that you do. Corporates, I've been an HR person as well. We have a lot of creches which have opened now for children, so that working mothers don't have that anxiety. And we employ people from outside. Is it not possible that we could engage elders from the families itself, from the corporate families, to oversee, so that they don't feel useless? They've got abundance of experience which can be used.
Okay.
I feel that could be done. We could have recreation centers where you could have, as you said, maybe card games, or you could have, cookery sessions where aging parents could come and give demonstrations, could hold classes. There's so much that can be done.
All right. So any other intervention, Prem, you think can help?
Yeah. First of all, if you would have noticed, I haven't talked about elderly, senior citizen, or citizens they are called, because I don't think they like it. So I've only used the word older adults, which is the new. They might not understand geriatrics, because geriatrics is very new. They will understand pediatrics because it's very much something which has been there for a long time. So, and of course, if you change languages, then it only gets even worse. For example, in Hindi, it sounds as vridh is really sort of as if somebody's really old. In Marathi, it's even worse. It's like matara. So it's almost matara. It's almost as if it's some kind. It's very difficult to even sort of think what it is. So one of the biggest things I feel is how the older adult themselves look at their particular age. So if they look at it in a very negative way, then obviously it's very difficult, because everything is at point blank their source. Now, as far as the youngsters are concerned, it's very simple. I think we approach them with utmost selfishness for their health. They are going to get older. Do not learn about aging because you have aging parents, you have aging grandparents, because it's a wheel, it's going to turn. If you're not going to live till old, then something is going to go wrong. But if you're going to live, you need to prepare yourself for your aging. So in corporates, that is what they should understand. And that's why they should have more knowledge about it, so that not only they can take better care about their older adults, but at the same time themselves, so that they have a peek into the future and they can take better care. Now, another thing which is very important, I believe in something known as intergenerational bonding. It's a very solid word, but it was done very normally in every family, whether it's nuclear or joint. People used to visit their grandparents at every point, and one of the best you can say relationships is between the grandparents and the grandchildren. But do not limit it to that. That's what the point I'm going to make. Why do you have to be friendly with a person who's only in a family? So it can be a friend of another age. So it doesn't mean that a 60-year-old needs to have a friend of maybe a 60-year-old. A 60-year-old can be a friend with a 100-year-old also. And a 60-year-old can be a friend with a 15-year-old also. So I mean, it's been shown in movies. If you remember, Chini Kam, there was a young child who was having cancer, was about to die, having a very good rapport with the cook, that is Amitabh Bachchan, who was the chef. So that exists a lot. So I think intergenerational bonding is very important. Then the biggest resource which Deepika has mentioned a bit, we always tend to focus away. What are you neglecting? The strongest human resource you have, which is untapped, is the older adults themselves.
Absolutely.
Experience, overcome almost every situation, financial, emotional, physical, mental, friends, anguish, jealousy. I mean, everybody goes through that. They have gone through that through their work, their personal life. And at the same time, they have done things which maybe we at our age are still learning to do. So we have to tap them, try to get them also to work. I mean, I always try to quote the movie The Intern, in which they obviously have Robert De Niro as the older person. So there is no age for learning. So what I would want is, at least in every company, if you have an older person along with a younger person, so that there is exchange of the young ideas. I'm not saying the older it is not learning anything. Yes, it has to be beneficial for that older person as well. But at the same time, that mentorship which happens, obviously it makes growth of them sort of grow together. So that is another way to approach it in corporates. And why not? Then tap older adults to help older adults. There are fitter older adults as well. So fit 65-year-old can take care of an 85-year-old who's unfit. Or other way as well. Age is a number. An 80-year-old will be supremely fit, but maybe a 65-year-old is not. So something known as companionship. I mean, what is life about afterwards? Ultimately, companionship. Then there is a lot of, I mean, there should not be any taboo if an older adult also looks at developing a different emotional relationship, maybe after their spouse is dead. Why not? I mean, because ultimately it is sort of companionship as well. So there are a lot of social norms which need to be obviously sort of broken. But at the same time, I think daycare centers are there. I mean, elder care is spread out through different levels. Then another common misconception is elder communities. Oh, so you're going to go into the elder community because you're not staying with the children. Oh, there must be some problem in the family. Absolutely not. People are deciding on themselves. They have too big a house. Children are abroad. So they are like, yeah, might as well go to an elder community where we'll have people of the same age group or maybe younger, older, and we can enjoy our lives. So that is another thing. Then old age homes is always sort of having a bit of a negativity to it, because it is shown in that way. I blame a lot to the sort of the medium, for example, is the movies or whatever, where it is shown that way. But assisted living has come up so much now in India as well, that you have places which are very good. Then another very important thing that the caregivers have to be made understand is, you cannot be there to do everything. You are human. So you need to make sure that the things can be done best for your parents or your grandparents by making sure somebody professional is doing it. So you are still doing you're not running away from taking care of them. You are still doing it, but making sure somebody else is doing it for you. As Mr. Mitra clearly said, the school part was there. So why not a daycare where in morning you will leave your parent, by evening you will pick them up. So you are working, they are not getting bored, they are doing their thing, they have experiences to share, you have experiences to share, and it becomes more of a bonding rather than him or her at home waiting only to think, oh, he told that he's going to spend time with me, but he's not come back yet. So what is the use of me being with him? So I think that's the perspective which we need to understand. A lot of facilities are there. So we should just spread our mind into getting, and there is another thing known as universities of third age, wherein people learn for not a certificate. They can learn anything. It's just skill building. It's a language, maybe it's a new sort of a skill, and they just get that particular certificate without an exam saying that they have learned this, but at the same time they know more than before. So I think there are a lot of avenues which we need to work, but we need to make the youngsters understand that it's basically working towards their aging. Keep it selfish if you want to, but at the same time that will help you to understand aging better, because you don't want, I mean, this was not talked about earlier. So what is the use of you not learning anything from your parents or your grandparents that it should be better done?
Absolutely.
I think we lost Raghu again, huh?
Yeah. No, I think all of this makes so much sense, and in all these pieces, and therefore these conversations are so important, because the whole idea of these series of conversations is also to not just limit it to our vision and passion, but to really reach out, because there's so many new ideas and new perspectives which come every time we have these conversations. It's so amazing and mind-boggling. Um, yeah, Raghu is back, but agree. I know with what Shinoyan or what Dr. Prem has been saying. I feel, one thing which I'm realizing is, uh, I've tried to be a conscious parent. So you learn conscious parenting, but I think we also need to learn to be conscious parent to our adult parents, uh, rather than just there are older people and we don't learn how to engage, take care, and we just do it because this is how we've seen generations doing it. But if we learn to become because at some point of time you become parent to them, and so this whole conscious parenting to it's for me the key takeaway is there, conscious parenting to adult parents. And I completely agree with the purpose that you're talking about. I mean, we've had an example in the house where my mom became an entrepreneur at the age of 67, and we started a homestay, Granny's Inn, which she became like a global granny today. All unfortunately we had to shut it down during COVID, but the joy, the purpose, those 7 years that she's lived, I've never seen her like that in my entire life. Every morning
Wow.
there's a purpose. There was so much work, and Deepika just said running a homestay is the most difficult thing that she's ever done. At 67 doing that, and even today she says, oh, my guests call me from all over the world. There was so much joy, and I can see she's missing that joy so much. So this purpose, as Dr. Prem said, it's not like you have to learn new thing to become something. But I'm just thinking I'll be going home next month and I have to find another purpose. If she's not able to find, maybe, I'll have to help her find something to look forward to, get up every day and do something every day. Otherwise, I've seen her aging so fast in last 1.5 years because there's boredom, there's loneliness, and there's isolation.
Yeah, I had a point over there, Shilpi, just to build on that. And sometimes we have to do like what Dr. Prem is saying, be a little selfish,
Yeah,
knowing from their point of view also, some things they will not do on their own. So if
yeah,
you express that it would help me, suddenly the
yeah,
parent in them comes up. Huh? So,
yeah,
you would sometimes have to be what you have always been to them.
yeah,
There, it is not that you are, it's not so easy for them to accept that they are now becoming a burden. That's, I think, the worst thing which they should
yeah,
know. Feeling
yeah,
that they contribute. Like
yeah,
the brilliant example Dr. Prem gave is that if they like making some dish, and we ask from them, like when we were young,
yeah.
we used to ask. Suddenly, we have stopped doing that because we feel it's a
Mhm.
stress for them. Why should I ask them to make such a complicated one? But maybe therein lies their joy once they do it, which they can do. They don't have to learn anything more. So, changing the lens a little bit, becoming what they would want you to say. And like you can think of Nick, your son or my son, that what I would want them to say, that if they ask me to do something for them, it's not a stress. While it may make me tired, but I would feel very nice about at the end of it. Similar is from for them is something which I also take back from this conversation.
No, that's fantastic. Actually, we started talking about healthcare and we have touched upon so many dimensions. It's been really a very very inspiring as well as eye-opening kind of conversation. And we kept on talking about changing our mindsets, looking at them very differently from the normal lens that we are used to looking elders with. um, Dr. Prem talked about intergenerational bonding, and Param, you mentioned about having initiatives like Grandparents Day and so on, where some of this gets accomplished. But just before we close, from a corporate point of view, there are so many initiatives that you have taken, and Sunayan mentioned about the possibilities. If there is something that you would expect the ecosystem uh, to help the corporates in these initiatives, what are one or two things that comes to your mind so that corporates can discharge this kind of initiatives and responsibilities better?
Yeah, sure. So we're, for the next year and 18 months, we've got our focus on extending the caregivers thinking beyond just insurance and healthcare. And thereby, for example, one of the things that Dr. Prem mentioned was like daycare facilities. Having, somebody who can be a companion not just during critical illness, but during their daytimes, who comes and plays,
Yes.
music for them, or read a book, or have a book club, chess club, bridge club, whatever has been their passion, right? And, finding ways to build communities within smaller areas in cities, because we've become more and more isolated and we hardly come out of our four walls today, right? Um, some of those we are trying to explore, having databases made available to them, for people whom they can connect with, or where they can travel and be like a homestay. And I keep talking to Shilpi and Deepika, you are an inspiration. You started something where people can go and be themselves. So things where it's not hard to travel, but they can explore their passion. So, for example, at any point in time in our organization, 700, 800 people are on assignment from India. And they have elderly parents, and especially during the summer months and winter months, their family, the wife and the children, go to visit them for 4 weeks, 5 weeks, right? So their entire support system and the mechanism of how they feel as a family changes during that window, right? So some of that, being able to take care and see what do they need, what do those children need. They feel that their parents here are well looked after, happy, doing the things that they want to do, and things like that. So some of those which are on at the moment like peripheral conversations, not really mainstream. We only talk about healthcare, and we're just getting to start talking about mental well-being, but not all of this around the process of aging and still living your full life. And what can we do to make sure that they live their full life? I think more and more conversations, benefits, connects, databases, communities, which can, enrich themselves through each other. I think that is the need of the day. And corporates leaning in towards that thinking.
Absolutely. I think, Sunayan, you mentioned about the demographic changes that is forcing the all of us, the corporates, the entire stakeholders to take notice of it. And Param, you mentioned multiple things that the ecosystem should get up and start to help corporates in doing that. And some of these that you did talk about in terms of assisting elderly, act as a proxy grandkid to kind of play board games or do anything that could have address the boredom that Deepika had earlier referred to. So I think it will all come together if there is more and more dialogues, more and more understanding, more and more collaboration that starts to happen. And we do hope that initiatives like what we are doing here will throw more light in this regard, and more and more from both from a supply side and from a demand, from an understanding standpoint, this will start to develop. I'm mindful of the time. If there are any closing comments from anyone that we have missed out, please feel free to chip in. Otherwise, it's been a fabulous conversation.
I think Sunayan has his hand up.
Yeah.
Sunayan has his hand up.
Yeah,
to
thanks.
speak, and I wanted to share a quick funny quip before we end the day.
Yes.
Sure.
Why don't you
It's
go ahead,
such a no, Shunal, you go ahead. Your hand was up first.
Okay. So
We'll be fair to you.
thank you. So Raghu, I think
Yes.
also just add on that an external system to take care. And it's so good to see Dr. Prem, who's a geriatric specialization. You don't come across them so much in India. In my
True.
stay
True.
abroad,
True.
once when and that was not too long back. I was abroad just 6 years back. That's when I first heard of a friend of mine who in UK was a geriatric, and that's where I learned that how important it is not to go to a specialist and go to 5 specialists because they don't see the full patient. Like, and when again, it's I think the same thing as pediatrics. You don't go unless there is a need to a specialist of chest. If there is
Correct.
a chest congestion, you go to a pediatric who understands the full system. So I think like a geriatric specialty coming up, we need really good systems to take care, not old age homes, but assisted living. I
Yes.
went to one in Calcutta for a friend of mine last time I was in Calcutta 3 months back. And it was called assisted living. But the moment I went there with my friend, the people who told us is it's an old age home. That when people are old, the final chapter of their life, they should live well. Now, that is not the first pitch you give, saying the final chapter. Nobody wants to hear it's the final
Exactly.
chapter of their life. I
Exactly.
didn't feel nice about it with this person who was there with me. Now, that awareness has to come. The person who was trying to do his best, he was
Yeah.
trying to sell that. Huh? It's not that he had any ill intention, but there is a need for us to have a system which is truly assisted living,
Yeah.
where people can go and get professional help is so much better than people who are amateurs, which is
Correct.
needed, the need of the day.
But handle with sensitivity is the point that
Yes, absolutely.
Of course.
Because elders are very, very sensitive. They already feel that, they're a burden. And to make them feel that, this is the last phase of their life. Like, it's a very simple thing that people feel, hum vriddh ho gaye hain.
Yeah.
It's a very, as soon as, the hair start turning gray, they start feeling that, they become vriddh and, there's nothing more left to life.
Sure.
It's not nice to make anybody feel that way.
Yeah. My mother, when I say one old woman is talking to the other old woman, she says, "You might be old. I'm not old."
Yeah.
When I speak with her, or she will say, "You are old. I'm not old."
Yeah.
Param, you wanted to share something, and then
Yeah, actually, two things. One, my daughter is graduating from a college where they really mean the word inclusion and belonging.
Yeah.
So it's one of the only universities in India where there are gender neutral washrooms. Okay?
Wow.
And I just say this because the language they are taught is they don't address anybody as him or her without assuming. So they address people as they, and then ask what are your preferred pronouns. In the same way,
Yeah.
the words, so the perceived words, when you say, how old are you? And I'm learning
Yeah.
from her, they're changing the language. When they ask anybody, they ask, how young are you?
Wow.
And it doesn't matter whether it's a professor, a parent, a peer, a colleague, a new joinee, the class that they're ragging under them, or the seniors whom they're sharing farewell with. They say, how young is he? Oh, he's only 23. Oh, he's 25. But he had a break here, and so they're building that into the vocabulary. And I'm amazed at how easy it is for them to change the language and change the mindset.
Yeah.
Right? So they're erasing words which has perceptional bias, right? Like she's teaching me saying, Mom, you shouldn't say anything to do with color, because the word color has so many connotations, has hurt,
Yes.
and generations of bias associated with it, right? Don't use the word color. Like, I'm not going to get my hair colored. I am going to get my hair painted.
Wow.
So this word old, and I know Dr. Prem, you talked about it. Elder adult. I loved it. I'm going to
Older
go back
adult.
to my corporate, yes, and I'm
Older
going to talk
adult.
about it. So that's one thing that I wanted to share, that the language of the newer generation
Yeah.
who are more inclusive, they are more mindful. It's changing for the better. The other thing I wanted to share was last year we started for the first time as an experiment in the generational diversity work, reverse mentoring. So, in quite, jest, we actually got our 18 CXOs in India to have somebody being mentored by as an empty batch who had joined that year. Okay. And all of them went in saying, and then we, talked back to them in 3 months' time. And they said, oh, we want to continue this because the learning is enormous. We fell off our chairs in the first meeting itself. Like, we went with a set of questions thinking, oh, they're going to ask us this, or oh, she's going to ask me this, or he's going to ask me. None of the interviews, the first one, 18 of them went as per script.
Wow.
right? So they fell off their chairs, and that was such an acknowledgement. Like the MD and his direct reports, they said we should do this for the next layer and the next layer, right? And they were the MDs who'd been in the system for about 4 weeks, 6 weeks, because we wanted them not to have, their judgments or their biases played out. They come with a fresh campus perspective, right out of college, mentoring a CXO level in the India team, right? And we want to continue with this experiment because the kind of learnings and the kind of insights that are getting generated out of that is enormous. And we want to widen this program. So it's both ways, and we have long way to go. But I love the fact that we are here together discussing this and acknowledging that it's a topic that we need to be more aware of.
Absolutely. As they say, the more we know something, the more we come to know what we don't know. So,
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
Probably this particular discussion, is really has served its purpose if it has raised more questions than it has answered. And at least I have a lot of questions, and given enough time, we could probably go on and on. We are already 10 minutes ahead or 12 minutes ahead.
I think Dr. Prem wants to just add something.
Yeah,
please,
I love
please
the
go
fact
ahead.
that they're all busy professionals here, but instead of saying, oh, I have to drop off, I'm seeing hands coming up after the scheduled time. So that shows the passion and importance.
I'm happy
for...
to extend for as long as you are willing.
Yeah, so
sorry, who had the hand up?
Prem, Dr. Prem had
Prem, go ahead.
I just wanted to add on what Param said, that see, the word old is just been, it's not a bad word, but it's just been made bad because it looks bad. Now, why? Because if I'm in one, my age is 1 year, I am 1 year old. If I'm 25, I'm 25 years old. But when somebody says how old, nobody asks you what's your age, how old are you? So then it becomes slightly in a different perception. So I think nobody should take age and old together, because you are, when you're born, you're 1 year old. So you're actually getting older every day at any age you are. So the fact that it is just branded with elders is unfortunate, but it shouldn't happen. Then secondly, I think the basic thing is communication. I think that is something which we need to also think about from both sides. It's older adults as well and the younger generations. Sometimes people don't communicate to each other, and that is where the isolation increases, whether it's in between families, whether it's between friends, whether it's relationships, whether it's just normal things. For example, okay, I feel I'm a burden on my son, but you never tell it to your child openly that you're feeling that way. It's just understood. Whereas as far as the son is concerned, or a daughter is concerned, or a daughter-in-law, whoever it is, sometimes it can be too paternalistic. We have to understand they are older people who have made decisions in their lives. You do not make decisions for them. You help them make the decision. You do not take decisions for them. So I think
right.
I think that is very, very, very important. So see, for example, as a geriatrician or as a health professional, I give you information which is the best for your health. But as an older adult who is coming to me, I am giving you the knowledge to take the best decision so that you keep your health better. So that's what we need to do as children as well, that we help them to arrive at the decision. We do not take the decision for them, because it's their life, it's their health, it's their whatever they want to do, it's their choice. So sometimes we don't ask. So that is my problem, which happens very, very frequently. So give them the dignity of choice, because that's what they have always done. Another thing is, you don't need to think in their, always, if you would be in their shoes, all you need to think is, I am going to help them be better in their shoes so that they can actually be more independent. I think the word which I have not uttered till now, let me utter it, is independence, quality of life. How much is the quality of life an older adult? It doesn't matter what the age is. Because it's absolutely a number. It's not even a cliche statement. It is a number. I have seen people near to more than 80, 85 doing wonders. And I have seen 20-year-olds, 25-year-olds not being able to do things. So it's just the way it is. And before I finish, I'll just give you a simple example of technology and an older adult. A PowerPoint presentation is something you would say a person who's been maybe working beforehand would have no clue about, because now everything is PowerPoint. Okay, let me make a PowerPoint about this, that. Even that is fading off. Now children are knowing coding and creating games themselves. So that's a different issue altogether. But when an older adult was told about a PowerPoint, he was said, okay, fine, you give me 1 week. This is intro. So they sort of learned about it and they made presentations on a PowerPoint. So an older adult was able to say things that the younger people didn't even have a clue about. So as far as learning goes, older adults might take more time, but they're more thorough because they don't focus on only the fact that the job has to be done. They focus on the fact that the job has to be done well, because we always keep setting targets, finish. But older adults are, it has to be completed within a time frame which I am comfortable, but what I will do is to the best of my ability. So I think that is the difference. And that is why I feel when you have a older person and a younger person working together, it actually feeds on each other. They know more about what's happening now and what might happen later. And finally, very simple, Zomato, which is something for ordering food. It's very easy for a youngsters to just order, okay, dadi kya chahiye, theek hai, ye chahiye, order kar deta hu. But why not spend that time actually making them sort of understand ki, okay, this is how you select what dish it is, this is how you add the payment. Fine, a lot of older adults might have the thing of ki nahi wo paisa chale jayega, because online unfortunately lot of things happen. But once they get confident in anything, they get better. So what I would say is help them become more confident rather than just doing everything because you don't have the time and you just want to just finish it off so that you can move on to sort of your next amount of work. Then another thing, older adults understand that you also have a family, but you need to communicate it as well at some point, because for them you are the world always, and you will always be, if you are the child or you are the this, but they might sometimes forget that you also have another world which you take care of. So be more communicative about it rather than people only thinking you are thinking, they are thinking something and you are thinking something else. So I think before we sort of end my comment, I think communication is very, very crucial, and that is something we never do. And we sort of just take things the way they are, and then it becomes years unless communication happens, and then it becomes too late. So I think that is something which is very important.
Raghu, I'm going to take a quick 30 seconds here.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
I think the last 1 hour, 15 minutes, it's actually making me reflect the 1 week that I spent with my parents 10 days back. And I think, so when you said, why am I stopping my mother from cooking? And I'm telling her that, no, you're 80 years, why do you need to be in the kitchen and cook 4 dishes instead of 2? Or asking my father, who's been a doctor all his life, saying, why is he still consulting? Because it's not for the money, but it was for the passion and the purpose. At the age of 80, he's publishing probably his 5th or 6th medical book. So Dr. Prem, he recently launched an online medical course for medical practitioners. And
and he's 88, right? What is the age?
He's 82. He's
82. Wow.
Wow.
And I kept asking them all these questions in the 1 week I spent with them, saying, why can't you just sit down, lead a peaceful life? You've done what you needed to do. But I'm realizing after this 1 hour and 15 minutes of conversation that, stepping into their shoes and really thinking, seeing it from their perspective is really important. I got associated with EldersIndia and with Raghu about 7 months back. And the entire 7 months journey has been an eye-opener for me. So I am, after the conversations we've had today, I think we're in the right field. And I feel very, very strongly that there is so much more that can be done and that needs to be done. And all of you seem to have kind of reinforced all of those thoughts and ideas that we've had. And I have been mulling over the last few months of my journey here. So thank you very much for this conversation. Raghu,
thank you so much. And even though, this panel discussion has to end at some point of time, it's already 1 hour, 20 minutes. but I would definitely call upon your support and guidance as we move forward. These conversations have to keep going on, and we would have, if we have made some change in terms of the overall understanding and awareness through some of these conversations, I think we would have done our job. So thank you so much once again. Thank you, Shilpi. Thanks, Rima. And thanks all the panelists for your excellent insights. It's been a fabulous 1 hour, 20 minutes. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.